This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. European Union officials agreed on a debt rescue plan in May. They also got a message from Britain's new governing parties. William Hague, the new British Foreign Secretary, said, "It was not difficult to agree between us that neither party is in favor of handing any more powers to the European Union." In the British elections, the Conservatives won the most seats in Parliament, but not a majority. So they and the Liberal Democrats formed Britain's first coalition government since World War II. Gordon Brown resigned as Prime Minister. His Labour Party held power for 13 years, the last 3 under him. In his place moves David Cameron of the Conservative Party. At 43, he is Britain's youngest head of government since 1812. Nick Clegg of the Liberal Democrats is his deputy. Their new government will have to deal with Britain's own debt crisis. The budget deficit is about 12% of the economy. David Cameron has promised $9 billion in budget cuts as a start. Both parties agreed to make no proposal for Britain to join the 16 countries that use the euro. Markets eased after the announcement of a nearly $1 trillion rescue plan. It involves loans, debt guarantees, and other support to euro area countries with heavy debts. Some of the money will come from the International Monetary Fund. The EU Monetary Affairs Commissioner said the debt crisis is a serious threat. The crisis in Greece has threatened to spread to other countries and has led to protests and violence over spending cuts. But now, interest rates for borrowing by troubled countries like Greece and Portugal have fallen sharply. Many people blame the Greek crisis for the sudden drop in American stock markets in May. It may have played a part, but officials told Congress they were still investigating the causes of the so-called flash crash. Major stock exchanges have agreed to develop a plan to prevent a disorderly market like that again. The idea is to slow trading in a coordinated way. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell nearly 1,000 points in minutes, then largely recovered. The plunge renewed debate about the risks of electronic exchanges and high-speed computer trading systems. And that's the VOA Special English Economics Report. You can comment on this report at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Economics Report. On November 30th, the European Central Bank took action to support the worldwide financial system. Central banks in Britain, Canada, Japan, Switzerland, and the United States also acted. The banks made it less costly for other countries to borrow American dollars. The United States Federal Reserve said the joint effort was meant to help central banks in Europe provide financial support to nations that need it. The action sent American stock prices up more than 3%. On December 1st, European Central Bank President Mario Draghi suggested that the ECB may provide new financial support for European countries struggling with debt. But first, he said, Euro area countries must establish trust by enacting big financial reforms. He said, a credible signal is needed to give ultimate insurance over the short term. What I believe our economic and monetary union needs is a new fiscal compact, a fundamental restatement of the fiscal rules, together with the mutual fiscal commitments that Euro area governments have made. 17 members of the European Union share the euro currency. Concern over its future has been building in recent years. The Greek debt crisis, rescue loans for Ireland and Portugal, and worries over Italy's debt have all increased fears that Europe may have to abandon the euro. The euro is the world's second most traded and second most used reserve currency after the dollar. European finance ministers failed to agree in November on a plan to provide economic support for debt-troubled countries. Financial officials say a lack of economic and financial cooperation is at the heart of the two-year-old debt crisis. Dutch Finance Minister Jan Kees de Jager said there is a strong need for tougher rules. Lack of economic reforms and lack of fiscal discipline has brought us into this crisis. So you also have to address these fundamental issues. That means Euro nations may have to surrender some power over their budgets to the European Union. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Persutti. We have more programs at voaspecialenglish.com, where people can read, listen, and learn English with texts, MP3s, and activities. We also offer English lessons at the VOA Learning English page on Facebook.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Experts say that agriculture provides 14% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions each year. The gases released include carbon dioxide, a major cause of global warming. 21 nations around the world recently joined forces to better understand and prevent greenhouse gas emissions from farms. The Global Research Alliance on Agricultural Greenhouse Gases was launched at the United Nations Conference on Climate Change. The meeting took place in Copenhagen, Denmark, in December. Agricultural experts blame a number of farm activities for producing greenhouse gases. For example, animal waste and cattle digestive systems release methane gas. Fertilized soil and the burning of crop waste also release harmful gases into the air. Experts say some methods of tilling, turning the soil to prepare for planting, also release harmful carbon dioxide. An official of the European Commission's Directorate General for Research says, agricultural greenhouse gas emissions can be cut. She suggests feeding animals a diet designed to reduce emissions. The new Agricultural Research Group says, protecting against global warming is only part of its purpose. It says the world also needs to develop better farming methods to feed growing populations in poor countries. United States Agriculture Secretary Tom Vilsack said, "No one single nation can fight agricultural greenhouse gas emissions and increase food production at the same time." This is why the alliance is important for combining resources and finding new ones. The United States Department of Agriculture will increase spending on farm emissions research by $90 million over the next 4 years. The total will reach $130 million. The USDA will share the research with other countries in the Global Research Alliance on Agricultural Greenhouse Gases. The USDA will support researchers from developing countries that belong to the alliance. Money from the Borlaug Fellowship Program will let the researchers study agricultural climate change with American scientists. Mr. Vilsack said that just as climate change has no borders, there should be no borders for research. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. You can comment on our programs at voaspecialenglish.com.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Education Report. Students at St. Louis University have launched weather balloons into the sky above the city of St. Louis, Missouri. The United States Space Agency, NASA, is paying for the project to measure ozone gas. It is part of a study to learn more about air pollution and our climate. The students are getting the opportunity to carry out a real scientific experiment. They used a laptop computer and a radio receiver outside the St. Louis Science Center to communicate with data gathering devices on the balloon. Before launch, the students tested all the instruments and attached them to the weather balloon filled with helium. Gary Morris is a professor at Valparaiso University in Indiana. He is the lead trainer for the nationwide study. The professor says NASA wants more information on ozone because of how it affects our atmosphere. High above the Earth, in the stratosphere, the ozone layer keeps harmful ultraviolet radiation from reaching the ground. But in the lower atmosphere, emissions from cars and other sources like petrochemical plants form ozone pollution and smog. They cause unhealthy air conditions that affect breathing. Jack Fishman leads the ozone study at St. Louis University. He says new requirements that decrease pollution have lowered ozone levels in American cities. But he notes that pollution in remote areas continues to increase. He blames industrial activity in East Asia for that pollution. Jack Fishman says polluted air is being blown across the Pacific by air currents in the upper atmosphere. He says ozone pollution has slowed the growth of farm crops, and forests. For VOA Learning English, I'm Laurel Bowman.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Living among trees, flowers, and other plants can fill your life with beauty. And if you are a woman, it might also help you live longer. Researchers found that women who live in homes surrounded by plants have lower death rates than women who live in areas with less greenery. The Harvard University's School of Public Health reported the finding. Peter James is an expert there on epidemiology, or disease spread. He and his team looked at information from one of the largest and oldest investigations of women's health, the Nurses' Health Study, which began 40 years ago. It now has information on nearly 200,000 women. For the new study, the Harvard team looked at death rate records of more than 100,000 women between the years 2000 and 2008. Then they compared the women who lived among the most vegetation and plants to those who lived among the least green space. They found in that 8-year period, the women who lived among a lot of greenery had a 12% lower death rate than the other women. Researchers said women in greener areas spent more time with others, exercised more, and were exposed to less air pollution. For VOA Learning English, this is the last health report from Learning English TV. But we are not going away. We will continue to bring you videos to help you learn American English. Go to learningenglish.voanews.com to find new materials and to look for past Learning English TV reports. I'm Carla Babb. Thank you for watching and learning with VOA Learning English.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Health Report. Human Rights Watch has released a new report called Living in Hell. It documents the practice of pasung in Indonesia. Pasung is when a person suffering from mental problems is separated from other people. The person in pasung is forced to eat, sleep, and stay in one small place. The Human Rights Watch report says about 18,000 people currently live in pasung in Indonesia. The reports tell of one case in which a man was trapped in a room for 15 years. Another case involved a 24-year-old woman suffering from depression. Photos show her chained to a wooden platform that serves as a bed. Shanta Ru Barige is the director of Human Rights Watch's Disability Rights Division. She says The organization has documented abuse of the mentally sick in many countries. She says mental health problems are often misunderstood. People in Indonesia and other countries do not see mental disorders as medical conditions, she says. Instead, many believe evil spirits cause mental sickness. As a result, people often seek cures from spiritual healers or through prayer. Indonesia banned the practice of pasung almost 40 years ago. However, Barige says the government has not done enough to end pasung. Human Rights Watch is calling on Indonesia to enforce the ban. It also says the government should establish a community-based mental health care system. For VOA Learning English, I'm Nikki Strong.
From VOA Learning English, this is the Technology Report in Special English. Attacks on computer systems are a growing concern among United States lawmakers. Recently, the head of a congressional committee warned about the threat of cyber attacks from China, Iran, and other countries. Congressman Michael McCall is chairman of the Homeland Security Committee in the House of Representatives. He compared the threat from cyber attacks to the terrorist threat faced by the United States on September 11th, 2001. But he said that this time the nation knows about the threat and is taking action. Other lawmakers expressed concern about reports that China is to blame for most attacks against American computer networks. Recently, President Obama told ABC News that there has been a steady increase in the threat to cybersecurity from other nations and from criminals. He said the United States has taken part in what he called tough talk with China and other nations. China's foreign ministry has said the country is open to talks, but it said China is itself a victim of attacks and not responsible for computer crimes. In February, President Obama signed an executive order on cybersecurity. The order directs American agencies to improve information sharing on cyber threats. A Senate bill on cybersecurity last year failed to get enough votes to pass. Some business groups and privacy rights activists expressed opposition to the measure. Now, a new cybersecurity bill has been introduced in the House of Representatives. For VOA Learning English, I'm Carolyn Prasuti.
I'm Mario Ritter with the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Cacao or cocoa trees grow in hot, rainy areas of Africa, Asia, and Central and South America. Their beans are used to make cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and of course, chocolate. There are 5 to 6 million growers, maybe more. Many are poor family farmers with only a few hectares. West Africa produces more than half of all cocoa beans. Ivory Coast leads the world in production, followed by its neighbor, Ghana. The trees are usually in their 5th year when they start to grow the pods that contain the beans. The trees produce the most pods when they are 10, but they are still productive long after that. Workers use large knives to cut the lower pods and long tools to remove pods from high on the trees. Later, they break open the pods to remove the beans. A half gram of chocolate requires about 400 beans. The World Cocoa Foundation says an average pod contains 20 to 50 beans. And experts say growers may lose perhaps 1/3 of their harvest to disease and insects. But now scientists have genetic maps of 2 kinds of cocoa trees. These genomes are mostly complete and could lead scientists to new ways to increase production and prevent disease. Mapping genes is the first step to understanding an organism. Next comes learning the job of each gene. The American food company Mars took the lead in paying for mapping the genes of the Forastero cocoa tree. The Forastero provides 80 to 90% of the world's cocoa beans. Mars depends on those beans for its M&Ms and other chocolate candies. The company's research partners included several universities and the United States Department of Agriculture. The average West African cocoa farmer produces about 400 kilos of beans per hectare. But Howard Yana Shapiro, head of plant science and external research at Mars, thinks that science could greatly increase the yield. A competitor of Mars, Hershey's, supported the gene mapping of the Criollo, a far less common cocoa tree. CIRAD, a French government research center, led scientists from 6 countries in creating that genome. We'll talk more about the cocoa industry next week when we look at efforts to help child laborers in Ivory Coast and Ghana. For VOA Special English, I'm Mario Ritter. You can read and listen to our reports at voaspecialenglish.com.